You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4, the local station. We want to get right to a couple of interviews that are going to be important for you. The two major party candidates asking for your vote in their close U.S. Senate race in Florida. A recent Quinnipiac University poll gives incumbent Republican Marco Rubio a narrow lead over Democratic challenger Patrick Murphy, 49% to 47%. This morning, we will hear from both men. First, Senator Rubio. We began by talking about his involvement in holding Global Ministries Foundation accountable for deplorable living conditions.
We saw a news story on the station about Eureka Gardens. My staff went in and looked at it in October of last year, and we were very concerned, got contacted by local government because it involved HUD. I personally came out and visited again a few months later. Our initial hope in October, November is that the news stories would lead Global Ministries to go in there and kind of fix it. It didn't happen. And then we started hearing from Global Ministry properties in other parts of the state and even other parts of the country. And we realized that we had here was not just a bad property, but a bad landlord. And then as we examined that even further, we found real deficiencies in the HUD process, the inspection process. This was a property that was passing HUD inspection. It's also taxpayer dollars. The taxpayers are subsidizing this housing. And so where's the money going that's supposed to be used to upkeep these buildings? And so in fairness, Eureka Gardens had significant problems before Global Ministry bought it, but they did nothing to improve it. And so from it, we've deduced a number of things. One, we got to do a better job of screening buyers. Second, we need to fix that inspection process and the accountability process. And third, we have to hold future landlords accountable. So hopefully there's going to be a buyer here soon that's going to buy Eureka Gardens and other Global Ministries properties, and they're going to come in and they're going to actually fix it, and they're going to do what Global Ministries should have done a few years ago when they bought the property.
It sounds like you still believe there have to be some changes on HUD's side of things.
Well, clearly on the inspection process. I mean, you don't have to be a trained inspector to walk in there and say this property should not be passing inspection. They were getting 80s at one point. And then they got a passing grade of 61 at one point. So even the Secretary of HUD acknowledges that the inspection process is broken, and that needs to be fixed. And so I've been working with Senator Nelson on more comprehensive changes to the inspection process and to give HUD more leverage over these landlords. Because right now one of the problems HUD has is they can take the contract away from you, but then what happens to all these tenants, and where do you move them if the property's condemned?
Right. Mayor Lenny Curry here in Jacksonville has talked about a friendship with you. Does his friendship, did that influence you to come check out what was going on at Eureka Gardens?
Well, I believe we would have responded as we did in Riviera Beach in Central Florida, but there's no doubt that Lenny's someone I've known for a while. I respect him, and I saw the passion with which he approached this, and he contacted me directly, and so that relationship, of course, helps. Life is about relationships and the ability to work together with people, but the truth is, although Lenny's a Republican, as am I, we've worked, Senator Nelson and I have worked together on this. Local elected officials that are Democrats have worked on this. This is really not a partisan, nor should it be a partisan issue. This is every level of government, the city, the state, and particularly the federal government working with city government to respond to something that both local government and the federal government are involved in. And there's no doubt that Lenny Curry's involvement was a big impetus for us to look into this initially.
Senator, let me ask you about some things that are partisan. Should they or shouldn't they be? You've talked about working with Bill Nelson on some of these issues. Hey, it's been really good to work with my counterpart who's a Democrat. Democrats also seem to be piling on against you as you run for Senate and re-election there that, hey, we can't count on you because things that they say you haven't done, haven't been at work often enough, or, you know, those sorts of things. How do you respond to some of those folks? And is that just a partisan thing?
It is, because the record says something very different. I ran for president. There's no doubt about it. I did. And they act like I was running to be the president of a private company. I was running to be the president of the United States to deal with the same issues we deal with in the Senate, but as president from the executive branch. Second, look at my record of achievement. Things I've done just in the last 2 weeks. I mean, our office and my work was instrumental in securing funding or the project for the Everglades. I convinced the chairman of the committee who was against it to be for it. That took me a while to do. He was pretty entrenched against the Central Everglades planning project. The Zika funding, I was the first Republican to consistently bang the drum on this and was instrumental not just in getting this done in May, but sooner. But beyond that, laws, I've actually passed laws that the president has signed. The Girls Count Act to take on human trafficking, the VA Accountability Act, which became law that we were involved in. Sanctions on Hezbollah, that's actually really starting to hurt that group's ability to fund terrorism. Sanctions on Maduro in Venezuela. I mean, on issue after issue, we have been involved and actually gotten things done on behalf of the state of Florida and the people of the state, and ultimately it benefits the country as well. So I'm very proud of our record of achievement, and I look forward in this campaign to pointing to those things. My opponent, Patrick Murphy, is not some private citizen that's taken up, you know, going to Washington. This is a guy who's Patrick Murphy's been in Congress for 4 years. He's done nothing. I mean, he literally has no signature achievement he can point to, has never had a law signed, a bill signed into law by the president. He is ineffective, quite frankly, hasn't worked very hard, and now wants to go to the Senate, but has no record of achievement to point to.
Again, from the critics' standpoint, they say, well, how can we trust that Senator Rubio, if we send him back for 6 more years, is going to stay all 6 years because whatever reason that they come up with?
Well,
how would you assure people that you will stay?
I'm running for Senate, which is a 6-year term, and that's my intention. The only thing I've ever said about it is no one can tell you for certain where they're going to be in 4 years. There's a lot of other things that happen in life. I can tell you for a fact that I'm running for the U.S. Senate for a 6-year term, that it's my intention to finish that and to do a lot of work there to get even more progress on some of the issues that we've been focused on. But I would also point people to what we've done in the 5.5 years that I've been there. I mean, we have real achievements that we can point to. I mean, we've done things. Some of them, you know, were bipartisan. The Girls Count Act was bipartisan. It's just one example to take on human trafficking. What has Patrick Murphy done? What single achievement does he have in politics or in life that he points to and says, you can trust me to get things done? Patrick Murphy has none. He has none he can point to, which is, you know, kind of why they talk about some of these other things.
And stay with us as we ask Senator Rubio for his solution to the shrinking middle class in America. Next on This Week in Jacksonville.
This is Pastor R.J. Washington of the Titus Harvest Dome. Join us on Channel 4 every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. We're going to have a God time. Yes.
It takes a builder to rebuild the American dream, and Donald Trump has the blueprint. Tax relief for working people, a 30% tax cut. Peace of mind for working families, an average $5,000 child care tax reduction and paid maternity leave. Lower healthcare costs, expanding competition by allowing people to purchase coverage across state lines. This is the blueprint. This is the builder. Donald Trump.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
When you've been injured in an accident, it's very important to call Harrell & Harrell early in the process. We will sit down and talk with you for free. Ultimately, our goal is to get you the justice that you deserve.
Harrell & Harrell. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
How do I protect my kids from the real-life monster living behind this door?
The I-Team, tracking sex offenders county by county.
What is the main concern about Halloween?
Revealing the red flags a predator is home.
Parents, family members, to be aware at all times.
Exposing the local neighborhood attracting sex offenders.
Is there one side of town that has more sex offenders than the other?
Unmasking the monsters. Thursday on News 4 Jax at 5. You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
And as we spoke with Republican Marco Rubio this week, we asked about the studies that show a shrinking middle class in Florida over the past 5 years. We wanted to know from the senator how he plans to change that.
Well, the reason why the middle class is shrinking is that the jobs that the middle class relies on don't pay enough anymore and everything costs more. We don't have economic growth in America. The economy of this country is basically flatlined. It's growing at 0.1%, very anemic. You need growth to create jobs and wage increases. You combine that with a high cost of living, including higher education, daycare, you name it. Everything costs more, and the cost of living is growing faster in many parts of the state. It's growing faster than pay is growing. So there's a lot of things that can be done to remedy it. Number one is you need economic policies that allow America to be vibrant and competitive in the world again. We are losing jobs in this country and industries because we are more expensive. We have higher taxes, we have more regulations. It's just harder to do in America that's why you see these plants moving to Mexico. They can save a lot of money building a car in Mexico, and it's not just labor costs. It takes them, they can get in 3 weeks a permit that takes 3 years to get in America. And that's why you see plants shifting and good jobs leaving as well. That's one. The other is higher education needs to be revisited. It's too expensive, and quite frankly, we're graduating too many people with degrees that do not lead to jobs. Some of the best paying jobs of the 21st century do not require a 4-year bachelor's degree. We need more vocational training, not just for younger students, but for people in the middle of life that need to be retrained as welders and plumbers and electricians. We need more availability of that sort of training. We need less stigmatization around that sort of training. And those are the kinds of skills that the 21st century is rewarding. We need to make it easier, cheaper, and faster for people to acquire 21st century skills. You do those two things, it'll help a lot to remedy some of these problems we're facing now.
This question is about a lot of Floridians, Americans in general, fearful for safety, security for them and their loved ones. So if re-elected here in November, What do you do to reduce the frequency of terror attacks and these random mass shootings? I think a lot of people are still thinking about Orlando.
Yeah, well, Orlando was not a random mass shooting. Orlando was a terrorist attack. We saw the 911 transcripts about a month ago, and it was very clear that he did that attack as retribution for U.S. airstrikes against ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So, and this was someone who was born and raised in the United States, who became radicalized online, and that led to what happened in Orlando. So that threat of radical Islamic terror is real, continues to grow. Just 48 hours ago, they disrupted another plot of a radical in Maryland who was thought he was on his way to shoot an American serviceman. This is a real threat. So we've got to take the threat of terrorism seriously, both at home and abroad. It begins by defeating ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and by taking away their ability to recruit and inspire online, both by attacking them online, but also by literally taking away from them safe havens where they can operate and organize from. In that realm, I think that's why I believe that the defense sequester needs to be reversed. I voted against it. I think it's a stupid idea. It's doing nothing to help balance our budget, but it is reducing our military capability and our intelligence gathering capability. And this is a point of real difference between me and Patrick Murphy. Patrick Murphy wants to actually close Guantanamo and release a bunch of terrorists. Either bring them to the U.S. or release them to third countries. And a significant percentage of people that have been released from Guantanamo have rejoined the war on terror. So he wants further defense cuts too. So these are things I hope we can change in the new Congress, because they don't make it easier for us to take on terror, and in fact make it harder.
On the Guantanamo issue, what about bringing those detainees and making them prisoners in a supermax prison where no one's ever escaped, even though they're here?
Well, there's two problems. One, you've now invited more terror attack in the United States around those prisons, and because they're here. And the second is because once they're in the United States, they're now entitled to the protection of our Constitution and of our laws. And there's a difference between a terror organization and a criminal justice investigation. When you arrest someone for a crime, you are gathering evidence for purposes of punishing them and convicting them and figuring out what happened in the crime. When you are detaining someone for terrorism, you are removing an enemy combatant from the field, and you are trying to gather actionable intelligence to prevent future attacks. They're two very different things. These are not law enforcement functions. We are at war. If you either believe we're at war or we're not at war with radical Islam, and these guys are soldiers and combatants, some of the worst in the radical Islamic world. And the reason why they're in prison is so they can't rejoin the battlefield, and to the extent possible so we can gather intelligence from them. The minute they walk into a U.S. territory, they are read their Miranda rights, they get a lawyer, and some of them may even get off on technicalities if you put them through the criminal justice system. So that's why we have a separate category during times of war called enemy combatants. And these individuals are enemy combatants.
Yeah. You've heard Senator Rubio talking about him. Now you're going to hear him talk to you. Democrat Patrick Murphy next on This Week in Jacksonville.
This is a Morgan & Morgan consumer alert. You may be entitled to $1,500 for each and every unwanted call made to your cell phone in the last 4 years. Companies collecting student loans, mortgages, or any other type of consumer debt must respect your privacy. It's time to fight back against these robo-bullies. Call us to see if you're entitled by law to $1,500 per call. Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com.
In the upcoming election, there's something we can all agree on. A yes vote on County Referendum 1. Voting yes will create more good jobs and give Jacksonville more money for public safety, better roads, and after-school programs. The referendum allows adding slot machines where gaming entertainment already exists for adults in Jacksonville's only state-licensed pari-mutuel and nowhere else. Vote yes for more jobs. Vote yes for a better future. Vote yes on County Referendum 1.
Honda knows that being adaptable has its advantages. That's why the Fit lets you do more throughout your day. Gives you a better view of your surroundings. And helps you stay in touch on the go. The Fit, from KBB.com's best value brand. Nothing compares to a Honda. Visit your local Honda dealer today.
Providing balance to our coverage of Election 2016, we spend the rest of our show this morning with Patrick Murphy. I asked the congressman, what's the biggest reason for an undecided voter to promote you from the House to the Senate?
Look, I was born and raised in the Florida Keys. My first job was as a day laborer, digging holes and pouring concrete. Went on to get my CPA license, worked at Deloitte as an auditor and CPA, started a small environmental company after the BP oil spill, and got into public service because I was tired of the name calling, the finger pointing, all the nonsense we see in Washington, D.C. And I first ran against one of the leaders of the Tea Party, a guy named Alan West, and was able to win that election. And since I've been in Washington, D.C., have had some great successes, preventing cuts to Medicare Advantage to help our seniors, passing legislation that will help lower flood insurance rates, passing some provisions on the House Intelligence Committee on which I sit that'll help keep our country safe. And we'll continue working across the aisle to find some common ground to get things done. And, I like this job. Call me a glutton for punishment, but I like showing up, to work. I like rolling up my sleeves, getting things done to help Florida. And right now, you look at Senator Marco Rubio, and he has missed more votes than any senator from Florida in nearly 50 years. Went on to tell us that he doesn't even like this job. To me, this is one of the most humbling jobs in the world. You gotta want it. You gotta want to show up and have to want to work across the aisle to get things done. And that's exactly what I want to do.
So you mentioned that you didn't like some of the name calling, not just this race, but all the races it seems like we see. It's all about name calling. There are ads on right now, not necessarily from your campaign, but that support you. That are kind of pointing fingers. Is that part of the platform still? I didn't want to be a name caller, but I've got to be?
Well, look, all the ads that I think are important to get out there are talking about what we need to do to get this country on track and making sure that voters see a very clear difference between the two of us. Number one, I have committed to serving a full 6-year term in the U.S. Senate. My opponent, Marco Rubio, still hasn't signed the pledge to serve a 6-year term. Number two, you look at the various issues. I believe we have to invest more in education. You think of technology and automation and how the world is changing so quickly. We better make sure that the minds of tomorrow are ready for those jobs. So we have to invest more there. Senator Rubio doesn't believe that. He's actually voted to defund billions of dollars of programming from education. You look at infrastructure. I think we should be investing more in infrastructure. And look what just happened here recently. Look at this, terrible storm that we just had and ran basically the whole coast of Florida. We better get serious about not only infrastructure, but addressing climate change as well. And I think there's steps we can take to address it. My opponent, Marco Rubio, doesn't think climate change is real, right? He denies science. There's a sharp contrast on so many different issues that you look at, and it's important for the voters to see that.
It seems like one of the issues you are aligned on is funding for fighting the Zika virus. Certainly something that comes up post-Hurricane Matthew and standing water, and that's a big issue. But some of what I'm hearing is that you don't align. How are you different? Don't you both want money to fight Zika here in Florida?
Is dating back to February of this year, was advocating for a full funding package, but a clean one, right? With none of these riders, no nonsense attached to it. Clean funding to send to NIH and the scientists to do their research. The president told us early on that this could be a problem. The scientists need the research. I went and toured Scripps. It's a science facility in my district in Palm Beach County, and talked to the scientists there, and they said, Patrick, we don't know much about this yet. We can solve it, we can develop a vaccine, we can do some prevention, but we got to learn about it. So hearing from the experts, right, I said, well, let's make sure they have that research to address this. Months and months and months went by, and nothing happened in the United States Congress. Finally, after coming back from recess, we had a vote on this. And the votes that we had previously either had riders or not nearly enough money. Riders, for example, that would defund Planned Parenthood. Riders to allow Confederate flags to fly. Things that had nothing to do with the core bill funding Zika research. So I believe that the Congress should be able to find more common ground on areas like this that shouldn't be Republican, shouldn't be Democrat. And, unfortunately, Senator Rubio showed himself to be ineffective at this. He wasn't able to get any legislation up to the floor for 8 to 9 months. Nothing came up. So I'm proud that we finally passed something. It was, I don't think, enough, and I think it was too late. But late is better than never, and the scientists that I've spoken to are grateful for those funding dollars and confident that they're going to get in front of this.
Yeah. And stay with us. We're going to talk with Congressman Murphy about his efforts in Northeast Florida to earn your vote. Next on This Week in Jacksonville. Stay with us.
Introducing Golden Corral's 7-day brunch. Every day at 9:30 a.m. Enjoy classic brunch favorites like chicken and waffles, Monte Cristo sandwiches, made-to-order omelets, crispy bacon, and your lunch favorites. Your day just got a whole lot tastier. Only at Golden Corral.
The broken stairs, the walls had mildew. People were continuously getting shot. The owners get millions of dollars from the federal government, and we have to live like this. Marco Rubio was the first person from the federal government who actually did something to help us. And I was like, wow, Senator Rubio really cares. He's cracking down hard on slumlords. I am a Democrat, but I'm for Marco Rubio.
I'm Marco Rubio, and I approved of this message.
Good or better? The Hyundai Elantra versus the Honda Civic. The Elantra has an available hands-free smart trunk. The Civic doesn't. Hyundai was named #1 in customer loyalty 7 years in a row.
Excuse me, anyone?
And only one is backed by America's best warranty.
What is that?
Better is the reason to buy Hyundai.
And this is the reason to buy now. Lease an Elantra for $119 a month or get 0% APR financing. Visit buyhyundai.com.
Some people like football, fast cars, karaoke. Rod Smith likes new taxes. $4.3 billion worth on babysitting, dry cleaning, shoe shining, taxi cabs, tombstones, fixing cars, painting cars, washing cars, burst pipes, broken roofs, busted toilets. Rod Smith even voted for higher taxes on paying your taxes. The only tax missing from his laundry list is laundry. Oh, Rod tried to tax that too. Rod Smith's great at inventing new taxes. Don't make it his job.
Is this man a hero or misguided? The lone holdout in America's most famous missing child case. 11 jurors voted guilty. Only he stood alone. Next Inside Edition.
Monday at 7:30 on Channel 4. You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
And more now with Congressman Patrick Murphy, the Democrat running for U.S. Senate, who has attacked Senator Marco Rubio as not working hard for the state Murphy loves.
What I'm saying is I have one of the most independent voting records in the entire Congress. Right? When I look at a piece of legislation, I don't, look at what the party's doing. I don't look at what different groups are saying. I look at it very simply and I say, how is this going to affect my congressional district? How does this affect the state of Florida? How does it affect our country? And sometimes you got to dig deep and say, how is this going to sit inside? How are people in 10 or 15 years going to look at this, and what's this really mean long term? And because of that, I do have one of the most independent voting records, because I'm putting Florida first. I'm putting the people first. And you compare that to Senator Marco Rubio, who time after time continues to put his own political ambition first, who told us, I think his tweet was 10,000 times, I'm not coming back to be a U.S. Senator, while running for the White House. He said he doesn't like the job. He said the Senate is an ineffective place to get things done. All right, missed a record amount of votes. And then he didn't get the job he wanted. So he decided to double back and run for Senate here, while at the same time not committing to serve a full term. That to me just reeks of arrogance, and isn't the Florida that I know, where it shouldn't necessarily matter what party you are. You should want your senator to show up to work. You should want him or her to be there, willing to be your voice in the United States Senate. And I think of just how humbling it's been for me to serve the people of Florida in my congressional district, right? To show up, right? Have a 97% voting record and be their voice. And then we have a senator who doesn't even like the job. Florida can do better. We can do better than that. It's not a consolation prize, and that's what Marco Rubio is treating it as.
The person representing Florida and Northeast Florida is going to say, hey, do you have our backs? We are a military-friendly community, a lot of military here with the 2 naval bases and so on. What kind of commitment would you make for that constituency here in Northeast Florida?
Absolutely. As a member of the House Intelligence Committee, a lot of my focus over the past several years has been on keeping this country safe, making sure that those brave men and women that are putting their life on the line for us every single day have all the resources they need to protect themselves, but to protect the homeland as well. And I believe by working together, we can do more to address that. And I believe that we need to continue looking at the challenges not only of today, but of tomorrow as well, and making sure that our military is as prepared as we've ever been. And if that means more investment, then we should be willing to make that. If that means making it more efficient, then we should be willing to do that as well. And I think as I talk to generals, as I talk to intelligence officials, I think there's a lot more we can do to make sure that those brave individuals have everything they need.
You're running on a platform of serving the middle class. There's been a lot of research that says the middle class in Florida is shrinking. What do you do to change that?
Yeah, you know, to your point, when I travel the state, I talk to Floridians every day, and they tell me, Patrick, you know, I haven't had a raise in 15 years. My child, my kid, graduated college with $50,000 of student debt and, you know, can't get a job. My mom can't afford her prescription drugs, and I'm reading the newspaper about this economic recovery, but they're telling me that they're not feeling it. And while we have had a recovery, it hasn't been strong enough, and there's a lot of people being left out. So I believe we have to invest more in education, invest more in infrastructure, right? There is $2.5 trillion offshore right now. Let's bring that money home, put it to work building roads, bridges, schools, IT. Let's raise the minimum wage. Anybody willing to work a full-time job shouldn't be living in poverty. Let's make sure that we're protecting Social Security and Medicare. As a CPA, I think we have to address the tax code, make it more efficient, and finally, I'll close by saying we have to make our regulatory environment smarter, more efficient. Right now, the big are getting bigger and the small are disappearing, and that shouldn't happen.
A lot of discussion for President Obama about Guantanamo Bay, and not the naval station there, but the Joint Task Force Detention Facility. Your thoughts, should it be closed, and what happens to those enemies of the state or enemy combatants instead of being there off our shores and what have you?
Yes, well, again, as a member of the House Intelligence Committee, have spent a pretty good amount of time looking at what's happening in Guantanamo Bay. And I believe, from everything I've been reading, that it's actually making our country less safe. Because time after time we are seeing ISIS and other terrorist organizations using just the mere presence of Guantanamo Bay as a recruiting tool to go out and get more followers. That is making us less safe, that they can use that to recruit. I also believe that its presence is a stain on who we are as a people, and believe that we can find a responsible, reasonable, rational way to move forward and to continue the process of closing down Guantanamo Bay. And I'm going to continue doing everything I can to work across the aisle, right, to find the common ground where we can protect America.
A recent poll showed 21% of Florida voters here in Northeast Florida have never heard of Murphy. Only 2% said that about Marco Rubio. General election November 8th. That's your chance to vote for Patrick Murphy or Marco Rubio or one of the other candidates running for Senate from Florida. Yes, November 8th, so that means 2 weeks and 2 days. Get ready. This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. I appreciate you watching. I'm Ken Justice.
At News 4 Jax, we're always covering the news, even when we're not on TV. Stay informed, on the go, and online at news4jax.com.